Andre Curtis walks into a room he swore he'd never walk into again, his ex-wife's inauguration gala, and the only backup he's got is an agent who thinks his own code name is the funniest thing he's ever heard. Meanwhile, back at HQ, two agents who almost got each other killed are now stuck in a room together, mandated to learn how to trust one another. If that setup doesn't tell you exactly how much chaos is coming, you haven't been paying attention to this show. Welcome back to Screenstorm's weekly breakdown of President Curtis, the Adult Swim spinoff from Dan Harmon and James Siciliano that keeps proving it can do more than ride the coattails of its parent series. Keith David, Stephanie Beatriz, and Jim Rash are back at it. And this week the writers split the team right down the middle. O'Doyle and Banks are grounded, forced into some very reluctant bonding, while President Curtis heads out solo into personal territory without either of them watching his back. That's never gone well before. Let's get into our real-time thoughts on Season 1, Episode 3, X. Aren't we all gone, baby, deep down? O'Doyle and Banks got themselves benched after last week's mess, and now they're sitting through mandatory trust exercises instead of doing actual field work. It's a punishment, sure, but it's also the writers forcing two characters who talk past each other into a room where they finally have to listen. Smart move for Episode 3. You don't want your central duo running on autopilot forever. That leaves Curtis on his own, heading into what is very much not a date with Governor Beverly Mills, his ex-wife, who's just been inaugurated and wants him at the gala. His assigned wingman for the evening? Special Agent Chomps, a name Curtis clearly finds ridiculous and Chomps clearly finds delightful. It's a fun mismatch, and it gives us a real look at how this show handles the growing pains of a still new team, which tracks. We're only 3 episodes deep. Here's how the episode played out for us, moment by moment. Janice remains an absolute scene stealer. We say this every single week, and we're not stopping. Turns out Beverly didn't just move on from Curtis. She rehabilitated Candyman into a functioning member of her staff. That's a flex. Gut punch. Curtis wasn't invited because Beverly wanted him there. He was invited so his absence wouldn't become a story. She wants him present, polite, and invisible. Chomps is quietly one of the most competent people on this show, and all he wants out of life is to survive long enough to retire in peace. O'Doyle, in classic O'Doyle fashion, actually cracks the gun baby situation before Banks does, but Banks is still sitting on a leak she hasn't dealt with. The Curtis and Chomps pairing has serious gross point-blank energy, that same odd couple hitman chemistry John Cusack and Jeremy Piven had, just swapped into a political thriller. He wasn't invited to be seen. He was invited to not be missed. Banks' informant problem stops being a minor headache and becomes a full-blown crisis. The staff over in the Westworld division wake up self-aware, and they are furious about how they've been treated. At the same time, there's a subplot brewing about werewolves who are not exactly thrilled about being offered a cure, bodily autonomy played for laughs, but with real teeth underneath it. And just when Curtis thinks his night can't get more complicated, Beverly finds out the catering staff at her own gala are werewolves. That's a governor's worst nightmare kind of reveal. And then, obviously, we have to talk about the line of the night. O'Doyle screaming that he is, in fact, gun baby. 2 weeks running now, he's delivered the standout quote of the episode, and honestly, at this point we'd be disappointed if he didn't.
Doing it because I am gun baby!
What stood out most this week wasn't the chaos. It was the restraint. This episode spent real time inside Andre Curtis as a person rather than just as the premise of the show, and that's the thing separating this spin-off from its parent series. The original leans hard into absurdity for its own sake. This one keeps finding ways to ground the absurdity in character. Bringing in Candyman and Amelia Earhart as recurring fixtures of this universe is the kind of world-building flex we've come to expect from a Harmon production. It's got that same why-not logic that made Rick and Morty's side cast so beloved, but it lands here because President Curtis never lets the weirdness overshadow the people at the center of it. And the Beverly and Andre storyline deserves real credit. It would have been so easy to write these two as bickering exes who secretly still want each other, sniping their way toward an inevitable reunion. This episode refuses that shortcut entirely. The respect between them is never in question. The affection is clearly still there, and yet the show lets them exist as two people who simply aren't together anymore. No melodrama required. That's a harder note to hit than it looks. and the writers nailed it. Between the trust-building B-plot finally giving Banks and O'Doyle room to actually connect, the gala storyline peeling back who Andre Curtis is when the title isn't doing the talking, and yet another chaotic swing from the show's growing bestiary of side characters. X might be the most balanced episode of the season so far. It's funny where it needs to be, sincere where it counts, and it never loses sight of the fact that underneath all the werewolves and self-aware theme park staff, this is still a show about a man trying to figure out who he is now. The love was never the question. The timing was. That's our full breakdown of President Curtis Season 1, Episode 3, X. Let us know down in the comments which moment hit hardest for you this week. Was it O'Doyle's gun baby redemption arc, the Beverly reveal, or Chomps quietly being the MVP of the entire episode? And if you want more President Curtis coverage every single week, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a breakdown. See you next time.